Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be encouraged, informed, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, bestselling author, certified leadership trainer, and book enthusiast Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services for every guest, as well as some of the books from yours truly, the host. Now let the fun begin. And today on the Going North podcast, we bring you some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today is no different. Man, who heck am I kidding? Today is a different day. It's a special day because we got one heck of a treat for you. We got a fabulous lady right here who is not only a best-selling author, but she's also a professor, a herbalist, and a natural chef. This fabulous lady right here is a nutritional consultant of natural health with almost 50 years of experience. You heard that right, folks. Almost 50 years of experience. This fabulous lady right here teaches herbal medicine at Europa University and the School of Health Mastery in Iceland. This fabulous lady right here is taught at the Omega Institute, Iceland, Kuraplu, Shiravanda, Yoga Ashram, Arise, Envision, and Unified Festivals, and the Mayo Clinic. And she also blogs for the Huffington Post and Care #2. And not only that, she's also a professional member of the American Herbalist Guild. And it goes on and on for 537 days. So let's give it up for the fabulous lady herself, the wonderful Brigitte Mars. How are you today, ma'am?
Well, thank you so much, and many blessings to you and your listeners.
Ah, yes, indeed. You're blessing us with our presidents right now, because you can't spell Brigitte without blessings, right?
One of those French names like yours, Dominique.
Ah, yes, indeed. All the French magic, ahoy. That's right. All the French magic, ahoy. Well, as with all introductions, not allowed to be 50 years long. So mind filling in any cavities where I missed some things about the beautiful Brigitte?
I have two daughters, Sunflower Mars and Rainbow Mars, and Rainbow's a supermodel and Sunflower's a preschool teacher. And I have three grandchildren. And I just ate a salad all made out of wild weeds in my yard. How about that?
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And it's great that you're a fabulous grandmother, or AKA Glamma, for the new term that's
Oh,
going around for the glamorous
oh, I like
grandmas
that.
around.
Hadn't heard that yet.
Oh, for real? All right. There you go. You got something to torture your kids with now. Glamma. Had a guest who had that term, and she said her son hates it when she calls herself that.
Oh, I've written 14 books too, somewhere, and all that.
That's right. 14 books. She's got her own magical nutritional app. Best-selling author throughout all the years. Well, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, with all of this magical stuff, what got you into being a herbalist? Because you're actually the first I've had on the show, actually.
Well, it's not something that people were doing for many years, but there's a big renaissance about it. But the reason I got into it is because I was not someone who was gifted with wonderful health growing up. I had, constant ear infections and digestive problems. I was on antibiotics a lot. But I had this wonderful Canadian grandmother who was sort of a wise woman. She knew about plants for healing. All my cousins and I wore little medicine bags with garlic in it to help prevent flu. And for some reason, at a really young age, probably like 3 or 4, I said, I want to know what she knows, because that stuff is like out of a fairy tale, magic potions and, big cauldron in the yard and making maple syrup. And I just was really drawn to it. So even in high school, I went to an all-girls school, but I did all my papers, if you had an assignment, like write a paper on French history. So I'd write about herbal medicine during the Renaissance, or I'd write about plantas medicinales de España. So I was always trying to tailor my education so I would learn about herbs. And by the time I was 17, I was managing a natural fruit store in the Virgin Islands in St. Croix, just because I'd read so much. And even though I was a kid, remember that natural medicine is something that millions of people for thousands of years have used. And a lot of times drugs get released on people, and then what happens? Call 1-800 bad drug. You know, there's a lot of drugs right now that are being recalled that were on the top 10 list. So I'm sticking with, what the creator made, natural plants for medicine, and taking responsibility for our health, not only with herbs, but also with food and healthy relations and calm continence and yoga and all that, walking outdoors and not doing things that poison our bodies.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Because Mother Earth has got us covered.
Yeah, and she's not real happy right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's probably one of the better things about the CV nonsense going on out there at the moment is that even though it's kind of bad to stay indoors all day, it actually helped some parts of the world to actually allow the dolphins to come back and show their faces in certain parts of the world, which is kind of the good thing about the whole darn thing. If there's any solace out of this whole endeavor.
That is a good thing. And, we need to really rethink what kind of world we want after this pandemic. And, I'll tell you something, Dominique. I'm 67 years old. I've never learned to drive a car. I've accomplished all this in life. I teach all around the world. I do it using public transportation, carpooling, walking, taking subways, buses. And so, I think people drive too much, and it is one of the problems. So we need to figure out alternatives so we don't just go back to life as it was pre-pandemic, because it was kind of a mess then. And it's still kind of a mess, but we need to take steps and look at what can we learn from this, great upheaval, so that we do what we can to make the world a better place.
Agreed indeed. Because they're, especially out in the DMV area, my goodness, from Washington, D.C. to Maryland to Virginia, all the extra cars, it was bad with all that traffic, with all them cars just parked on these highways and all that smog just going into the air and the atmosphere. It's like really bad for Mother Nature and for bad for everybody else's emotions on
It's
top of
really
that.
bad. And, Dominique, people think that driving is going to save them time, but they need to think about how many more hours a month do you need to work to pay for your insurance, your car payments, your gas, your tickets, the endless repairs, etc. So, so what? It takes me 15 minutes more to get to the airport, but I arrive calm. I've had a nap. I've caught up on my emails. And I can spend my hard-earned money on things that I want: pretty clothes, nice books, music, going to music festivals. So it's just something to rethink, because I think we've been bamboozled about this car thing, that everybody needs one. And, one of the big problems, it's not just people in North America that want cars. The whole world wants cars. And that's a problem. That's a lot of steel and a lot of gas and a lot of plastic and a lot of problems. So, if we were really concerned about people's health, maybe, because every day we hear the death report, but maybe we would do something about all that fast food and all those car accidents and all that drug addiction and all of that kind of stuff. All so, yeah, that's some of the stuff I think about.
And it shows that you're actually thinking, because some folks don't even think, because that is actually true. Because with the whole, I guess, illusion of needing a car for certain areas of life to get from point A to point B, and then if you let yourself get stressed out, and then you eventually get addicted to drugs that are going to harm your body, then that just leads you into this whole spiral of death that's hard to get out of.
Yeah, it's true. And, walking is good exercise. So, here I am, a grandmother. I walk with a rolly bag, and you can go grocery shopping like that. Now, granted, I live downtown in Boulder, Colorado, and there are lots of great places you can go within walking distance, but there's also a, bus depot 5 blocks away, and I walk there and catch a bus to the airport if I need to.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And speaking of walking, actually learned a fun fact about you that you actually do some walking with your grandkids, then you usually test them and see how many plants and weeds they can name to
It,
to at least help them to get paid when they ask you for money.
it's true. And I did that with my kids because, of course, if you have kids, they're going to ask you for money. and they're probably going to still ask you for money. And I would say, oh, you want some money, do you? Well, let's go for a walk around the block. I'll give you a quarter. I mean, this was 40 years ago, so when a quarter was worth something. I'll give you a quarter for every plant you can identify. I'll give you 50 cents if you know the Latin name, and you get a whole dollar if you can tell me 3 uses. So, and of course, we wouldn't walk the same block. We'd have to like, oh, well, this week we're walking, on the West Side block. So
Uh,
yes, I did that with my kids, and still doing it with the younger ones.
See, there you go, extending the youth right there. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, in addition to all the magical herbs and the walking, are there any other things that you do to keep yourself young, fit, and energetic?
I do want to share with you a technique that I use, because I think that very often, if we're very entrepreneurial, or we have things that we do, we've got families, things that call on us, we've got busy careers. I find that you have to get up early enough to do some of the things that are healthy for yourself. So if you hit the ground running and you've got to be somewhere in an hour, that doesn't leave you time for doing, yoga practice or going for a walk. And I'm a big believer in getting ready for the next day the night before, so that mornings are a little bit calmer. Like, lay out your clothes, find out what the weather's going to be, pack a healthy lunch, look in your day planner and see, what do you need for tomorrow? What papers do you need? Do you need, bus money? Do you need, subway tokens? And then I do get up early and I do yoga almost every day. I eat all the colors of the rainbow. I think Americans they eat a very beige diet, think about it. And so I'm going for, like, purple cabbage and black rice and red beets and green kale and dark orange winter squash. So I eat all the colors of the rainbow, even though I have a daughter named Rainbow. And I do use colors as a thought process for being inclusive. I really haven't taken a prescription drug in decades. I use herbs when I'm sick, because a lot of drugs, yes, I know some drugs save lives and I wouldn't be opposed to taking something if I needed it, but I think that very often, when we have a health issue, rather than just taking a drug, we might want to look at, is this ailment trying to tell us something? Maybe we need to back off of coffee, or too much red meat, or fried food, or chips, or too much sugar. And I know not everyone likes to hear that, but people don't really like being sick. And right now it's in our face, with the pandemic, that we should be thinking about our immune systems, because, there's a virus out there, and, it is killing people. And indeed, especially people with pre-existing conditions, but sometimes it just kills people and you don't know why or when or what the deal is. So, health isn't something to think about only when there's a crisis. It's really a gift that we want to be working on and nurturing and taking care of all the time. So besides doing yoga, I stand on my head every day. I eat a lot of weeds like dandelions and chickweed. The movie I made today was about, I think we're calling it Lawn Gone, because we want to get people to stop mowing their lawns. I want to say that America uses about 30% of our nation's water to water grass. And then, people don't eat the grass unless you're a cow or a goat or something like that, a moose. um, that's a lot of
Yeah.
water to waste. And, there's almost 8 billion people on the planet. So we need to share and, use the water and share the resources. And all that water could be growing food, could be growing fruit trees, could be growing things. So we wouldn't have to use more gas to go to the store to buy some plant that was brought in with gas from another state or another continent. So I'm really calling people to the table, like, it's time to wake up, because it's showtime right now. It really is. And so I'm really disappointed. If you're listening and you spray pesticides on your lawn, know that those pesticides are killing plants that are food for the pollinators. Maybe you've heard that the bees are dying at an alarming rate. It's true. The bees pollinate 3 out of every 4 bites of food we eat. So if we spray the dandelions, we're killing the bees. And you might have also heard in the news, if you read the news, that hungry time's coming. You know, a lot of businesses are closing. This unemployment thing is not going to last forever. That a lot of people are getting really nervous about how long they can go without their business and their income. And, you know, growing a garden in your yard, or maybe learning what some of the edible plants are rather than buying pesticides, that might be a good way to save time and money and your health and the planet. You can do it all at once, and it's really quite joyous.
Yes, indeed. And I bet you bring joy to everybody you meet, don't you?
I do my best. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, because I've become a bit of a fan of his past couple of days, just hearing you speak and hearing you share some of your stories of how you just really educate and help others, and to really go the prevention route as opposed to the remedy path.
Yeah, and if you are going to use a remedy, why not use something that was made by, you know, nature, and, you know, that which what was made by nature and who made nature, you know? Like, I want to be on that team. And again, you know, dandelions are amazing. Every part of the plant is edible. And somehow we've been bamboozled to think they're an enemy. And we need to change the consciousness, because people right now think that they're a good neighbor if there's no weeds in their yard. But I think if you're spraying poisons in your yard, you're not really a good neighbor. You're not even a good citizen on the planet Earth, because you're contributing part of the poisons that are part of the problem, that are going to kill the bees and the butterflies. And really, do you even want to sit on a lawn that's been freshly sprayed with a chemical that is known to cause cancer, whose name I will not mention? But, you know, do your research and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and that's another thing too. There's like so much cancer going around and so many different variations of forms of it nowadays, which is darn near a shame that it's really running rampant as much. And it's all because of what we really put in our environment.
It's true, what we put in our environment and what we put in our bodies. And, you know, rather than, you know, blaming someone else, that, you know, I think we have to work hard not to deal with cancer once we get it, but we should live a life that is preventing cancer. And so when, you know, you mentioned cancer, I would encourage people to eat lots of green leafy vegetables, a salad every day, learn to grow broccoli sprouts. They're a great anti-cancerous herb. It's very easy. I have a YouTube on, you know, broccoli sprouts. They're so easy. Grow them in a kitchen. You can grow them in the winter. Have fresh vegetables in your garden that are high in vitamin C for just pennies. I certainly think of lots of dark orange vegetables as being a healthy thing. And, you know, don't do things that we know cause cancer, like, you know, a lot artificial preservatives and, you know, pesticides. We want to support our organic farmers, because, you know, we have this opportunity to be on this planet, and we want to do something to leave it a little better than when we got here. Whether you have, you know, offspring or not, you know, wouldn't it be nice to be thinking about the future? You know, we're here for a while, but wouldn't it be nice if we leave it in a little bit better space?
Yeah, that's right. Leave it better and not butter, right?
Better not bitter.
Well, that too.
Yeah, that too.
Oh man. Well, it's fabulous that you shared all the magical knowledge and heck, even folks being too much on the beige side of the rainbow diet. Like I never heard
Yeah,
it you expressed
right.
that way before. I actually like that. It's like,
You,
yep,
you, you know, there's an old saying in the natural foods industry: the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead.
that's right. The three white poisons, as they call them, right? Sugar, salt,
Yeah.
and flour.
Yeah, and, you know, salt, I even try to get salt that's like gray or pink Himalayan salt or Celtic salt, because do you know, Dominique, that most salt is heated to 1400 degrees, and then the minerals are removed from the salt, and then they sell those minerals to the vitamin companies. And that's one reason, when people get a little stressed out, they think, oh, I got to have some salty snacks to make me feel good again. It's our bodies are looking for minerals. We are looking for love in all the wrong places.
Ah, so our food is depraved, which leads to humans being depraved.
It's true. And another thing, centuries ago, a hunter would hunt an animal, and then whoever made the kill would eat the part of the animal that they felt would give them the most strength, the heart or the liver or some other part. And now, when people are eating animals that are raised in factory farms where they're so overcrowded and it's so, horrible, and they start cannibalizing each other, and their babies are taken away from the mothers, when they're just newborn. It's like, could that be contributing to the anxiety and the depression that people feel? Because if still beating heart of a elk could give a warrior courage, what about eating the flesh of an animal that has a hellacious life, being crammed into a factory farm where the lights are left on and it smells horrible? So, things to think about. So I'm not telling everyone you need to stop eating those foods, but why not support farmers that are doing a better job, a more humane treatment of the animals? Or you might look into, eating more fresh fruits and vegetables and grains and beans too.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And you know what? That probably would make sense because there's a lot of push for mental health awareness out in the country nowadays, and it could be basically what we're putting in putting in our mouths. Because most folks, I think it's a classic saying: we most humans die by the spoon more than anything else.
Yep. Or you dig your grave with your fork is another way of putting it. But Dominique, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They probably call you Dom, right?
I take both.
Okay. Well, I like the name Dominique.
I like you too. It's okay.
Because it's French, like Brigitte. But depression is such a predominant thing that people deal with right now. And of course, I think a lot of people are depressed right now and sad and scared and freaked out about what's going on in our world. And that's a whole nother topic for another show, perhaps. But according to the ancient principles of Asian medicine, when someone's really depressed, a holistic practitioner would say, what's going on with your liver? Maybe drinking lemon and water and using more tart foods like tart apples or kiwi, or eating more green leafy vegetables might be helpful. And of course not eating horrible depressed animals might be a good idea. And then we look at the health of the thyroid. So in Asian medicine, there's not really separation between the mind and body. Here in the West, when we have a physical problem, we go to one kind of doctor. But when people have anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or excessive anger, they go to a different kind of doctor. But really, the two should be connected. And my second to the last book was The Home Reference to Holistic Health and Healing, published by Quayside Publishing. And it's all about looking at natural remedies for depression, fear, anxiety, grief, healing from trauma, because our mind is not separate from our body. And there's a lot of steps we can take. Very often people with depression might have a need for more amino acids, perhaps, or maybe they're eating a food that they're allergic to or sensitive to that's causing brain inflammation. I mean, we know that consuming things we're allergic to can cause inflammation in our sinuses or our joints, but also in our brain. Food for thought.
I see what you did there. That's right. Food for all the thought right there. That's right. Give yourself the right food so you can think correctly, or at least think right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it's so true indeed. Well, on top of the herbs, you have one heck of an amazing, interesting life because I hear you got this memoir coming out in the near
I don't know
future.
where you seem to know everything about me. You are a good researcher. Yes, I am writing this memoir, And people say if you can remember the 60s, you weren't there. But, maybe because I was there, but I was also a mother. So I had to be quite responsible because, the babies are going to wake up at 6 a.m. and you better have, homemade sesame milk and crunchy granola ready or whatever it is that they were eating at different stages. So I am writing a racy memoir called Wildflower Child, a tale of sex, psychedelics, and natural foods. I'm so glad you asked. Yes. And then I think, who's going to want to read this? But, I definitely have an interesting story to tell.
I'm pretty sure that's got to be at least a 500-page book minimum, right?
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm getting to the end of it, so I better finish it while people my age are still alive. I don't care, but I have a younger sister who says, "Tell me about the '60s." So yeah, okay. So it's really kind of for her.
Ah, that's beautiful. And what I love about you actually being able to share your story, especially when it comes out, and I definitely want to be one of the first to purchase it, is the actual process you're going through the book, is that you're actually smelling certain scents that actually remind you of that time and just playing music from that time to really get yourself really thinking about those moments. So what led to that process of you actually going with that route of making sure you remember those stories?
Because I've taught herbal medicine for so long, I feel that you can teach facts, but if you teach a story, like, one story that I often tell is like, yeah, I was living in a teepee in the Ozarks in Missouri, and we had electricity in the teepee, okay, because we were modern hippies. But I got bit by a copperhead snake,
Ooh.
and I looked in all my books. What do I do? Snake bite, snake bite, and none of my books, had snake bite in it. And one book had all these Chinese herbs, which did not exist in the state of Missouri at that time. And then I, and also my husband at the time had he sucked the venom out with a vacuum cleaner. I thought that was very clever. He sucked the venom out with a vacuum cleaner. And then I came across finally in one of my Native American herbal books that the Native people use the herb echinacea topically for snakebite. And so if I tell something about herbs with a story, it imprints at a whole different level. And it also gives the lesson that sometimes what you need isn't in the book, but you have to be quick thinking because it's an emergency. And I think it's really important that we know what to do in an emergency. I think we're so dependent on like call 911, but a friend of mine called 911 because her child had a nosebleed, and that was a very expensive ride from, an hour away up in the mountains to treat a nosebleed. I wrote a book on natural first aid that would say like, put a cold compress on the back of your neck or put some yarrow leaves stuffed into your nostrils or, I had a lot of ideas that would help. Um, or take some shepherd's purse tincture. And again, we have given the responsibility of our health over to someone else in many cases. So, another part I think of this pandemonium, I have a lot of names for what's going on right now, is to learn more about being responsible and taking good care of your health. It's not only about wearing a mask and using hand sanitizer and washing your hands 60 times a day. It's also about good relationships and eating healthy food and maybe taking some supplements like vitamin C and vitamin D. But I also think, we never know. Usually we don't know when we're going to die, that we also need to be spiritually ready to meet our maker because it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be, 20 years from now, or who knows. But a lot of times it happens very suddenly for people. And, are we ready? Have we forgiven those we need to forgive? Have we, organized our life so that whoever's left to deal with it can make some sense of it? And they know like, that's a $2,000 vase and this one's from the thrift store. So don't mix them up.
There you go. There you go. And what would you consider your spiritual practice to be?
Dominique, I read a book called the Urantia book. and Urantia is the name of our planet. But the Urantia book really, the whole fourth part of the book is the life and teachings of Jesus. And I don't think that I would have found that beforehand. My father was Jewish, my mother was Catholic. I was raised to have respect for all religions and all people. And I think it was a marvel that my parents, who really kind of, broke away from the tradition of like marrying within your religion, and they pretty much said, we're not going to tell you what to believe. And so I went to catechism and Sabbath school. I went to a lot of rituals. I teach at a Buddhist university. I love all the ways that people love the Creator, and I have respect for them. And something that the Urantia book says is we can have spiritual unity without spiritual uniformity. And I really love that. And so I see the Urantia book, it's spelled Urantia. I see it as kind of a systems upgrade, that we're ready for more information. And I know that is troublesome to a lot of people that are, traditional, but, hey, if we, unfortunately, when Jesus appeared on the planet, the people thought he was too controversial. So, anytime someone says, oh, you're a conspirator, you believe all those conspiracy theories, I said, yeah, well, so was Jesus and Galileo and Nicholas Tesla. And yeah, I guess I'm always looking for truth, and I question authority. And I probably will always do that. But I also have respect for tradition and do my best to see the goodness and beauty in the different ways that people honor the Creator. And basically, I think it all gets us to the same thing.
Ah, lovely right there. Lovely right there. Funny enough, that book is on my reading list. It's a nice, thick read, too. The Urantia book, if I'm not mistaken.
Urantia. Do you know who Pato Batan is? He's a
No.
great reggae singer. He's a reader. He has like an online study group. You could Google Pato Batan too. He's an amazing reggae singer. But yeah, I love the book. I've been reading it since I was 19 years old. And it also talks about life after death and life on other worlds. It also says that Jesus had a core of women apostles, but they left that out of the Bible because he was just so ahead of his time and so controversial. Gotta love that guy.
And I can believe it too, because there's always Mary Magdalene and the other Mary that was mentioned in the Bible, and of course his mother Mary and all these other folks. It's like,
Yeah.
wait a second. That's the thing, is like, I love the Bible. It's a great book. I'm a Christian itself, but it's not a complete book, especially the English translation, because there's stuff that's missing.
Yeah, and things got taken out, different kings and popes, deemed like, let's leave this out or let's put this in. But anyways, I have great respect for it, but it really took the Urantia book to get me to open my heart to Christ. And, that's what it took. So there. So, but I really love it. And there's a whole lot in there about the history of our planet. And I feel very comforted. Maybe that's why I don't fear death so much, because it does say you see your loved ones again. And that's a great comfort, because I think people often lament that when someone leaves that they'll never see them again. And, I feel that it's a really benevolent universe, and that there's a plan. Dying couldn't be any scarier than being born and coming into this world. Like, you never know what to expect. What kind of family you're going to get?
Yes, indeed. That's true indeed, because they may not be lucky like yourself in a way where it sounds like you had parents that were free thinkers that eventually allowed you to become a free thinker.
I really respect that for them. So,
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, since this isn't your first magical interview, is there a question you wish you'd be asked more often when you're doing interviews like this?
well, I often get asked, like, what would you like to leave people with? So there's two proverbs that I love to say, and maybe things that we can reflect on. One is, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. the next best time is now. And that's so simple, and it's springtime. It's a great time to plant trees. Maybe plant something that produces fruit. I really think that food issues are important, and we're all hearing how we should, be eating more locally. And, what could be better than something that you just picked off a tree, 5 seconds before you're eating it, whether it be a plum or an apple or a peach. And, so that's great. And then the other proverb, I've heard it came from the Jewish tradition, but I've also heard it came from the Hindu tradition. If you have water to throw away, throw it on a plant. And, I don't think that we respect water enough. There's many parts of the world where people walk a very, very long ways to get water, and they use it very wisely. And we just like let the water run and flush, 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 and run the water while we're brushing our teeth and rinsing and talking. And so, my father used to say that wars of today are being fought for oil, and wars of the future will be fought for water. And, when 40 years ago, nobody bought bottled water in plastic. Nobody did. And when someone told me that, 10 years from now, people are going to be paying for water, I thought, of course not. That's never going to happen. Water, comes out of the tap. It's fine. But even people that aren't really that, health conscious buy bottled water, which is a travesty when we think of all the plastic that gets thrown away, because a lot of that plastic is not recycled. We were just shipping it over to other countries, and they've got the smarts to say, we're not going to take your plastic any longer. You need to stop producing it. So I would love to see the future use a lot more hemp products. I'm not saying everybody needs to smoke it, but hemp could be used to make plastic, could be used to make fuel for automobiles and airplanes. Do you know that Henry Ford actually built a car that the body was made out of hemp and it ran on hemp fuel? I mean, and so we need to figure out our energy. And I do think that, I have a lot of solar things, and a lot of, Colorado solar's big, but even solar requires petroleum and biomass and all that. So we need to use less and share more and take more responsibility and try to do things local. And, one other thing that's come out of this this time, the COVID time, is, we are seeing that there are a lot of things that we can do from home, that maybe we don't have to always get in our car to drive, that we can do a meeting on Zoom, that we can, get together with friends virtually. And, maybe that's going to be part of our future. Although there's some things that really need to be done in person, like a cooking class. Hard to do, like on the TV, but I know people do it. But I think, learning about the plants, some things are really good to do in person.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Especially warm embraces. That's right.
Mm. Yes,
Virtual hugs don't do it.
I'm with you on that.
Yes, indeed. Not to mention, it'll be interesting doing a Zoom call with someone overseas doing a cooking class. Is like, okay, so the whole house is on fire. What do I do?
Yeah, and you've got to like go buy the food. You got to eat it by yourself. There's no like group camaraderie, and do all the cleanup yourself. But that's okay. I know that there's wonderful cooking shows. I'm friends with quite a few of those chefs. But I'm just hoping that we learn what we can. And if we all do something to make the world a better place, we maybe can't do everything, but if we all would take on a few issues, whether it's, volunteer work, or for me, edible lawns, ending pesticide use, or, natural health. But, for some people, it might be helping the rainforest, or, helping people in other continents, or we just all need to find a few projects that we can lend a hand to, and not just talk about that we want to help, but, actually do something. And, maybe they're a group that we write a check to once in a while, or that we actually, give some of our time to helping.
Yes, indeed. That's right. Take the actual action. Because you drop so many darn takeaways in this interview, which is like a gold mine. It's like you got this magical belly dancing dress of knowledge, as I like to call it. It's like instead of a necklace or a tennis bracelet, it's like you got a whole darn skirt of wisdom you just laced on us indeed.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much.
Ah, yes, ma'am, indeed. Yes, ma'am, indeed. So coming down to the question that everybody gets to receive, and that is if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but this time in 2020, with all of your amassed knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
To, really think about who you have children with. Make sure you're in agreement with them about things that are really important. Because if one is pro-vaccination and the other's not, or one, wants to raise the child a vegetarian and the other doesn't, it's like you need to be on the same page about certain things like that. So I would just say that having children is a really huge responsibility, and um, it's such a precious thing. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to raise two children, and Rainbow was born in the teepee, and I really, but I would just say, yeah, pick your partners wisely. And the other thing I think I would say, remember that sometimes it is through adversity that we find our greatest teachers. So even though if you've been broken before or hurt or wounded or love is lost or your career or whatever, you know, life is here to test us and to get us to rise up and to be challenged, and that's how we grow. And so I can say now in retrospect that all the things that gave me the most tears and the most concern have also been my greatest teachers. And so hopefully
Sweet.
that gives somebody a little faith to go on.
That's right, to going north even.
Go
Yes, sir.
north.
Ah, yes, indeed. Use your tears as teachers. That's what I'm talking about.
I love that.
Yeah, you should probably make a t-shirt out of that one.
Tears as teachers. Okay, beautiful.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, for those who want to keep up with the lady who has bountiful gardens of wisdom, metaphorically and naturally, what's the best way for folks to reach out to the fabulous Brigitte?
Thank you so much, Dominique. You can find me at my website, BrigitteMars.com, spelled BrigitteMars. I also have a YouTube station and 14 books that are available on Amazon and Kindle, and of course, my website, just in case you want to support your local artists. That's always so appreciated. And yeah, lots of YouTubes that tell you, like, how to eat the weeds and what to do them, what you can do with lilacs and roses and lamb's quarter.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Check out her site. Check all her fabulous wares. Check out her YouTube page. It's good stuff. She's got some recipes, a cook, and even teaches you how to make your own nut milk, which is fabulous. So definitely check it out like a library book.
Nut milk
Yes.
in a minute. It only takes 1 minute and no cows are involved. How cool is that?
See, it's extra cool because you can say moo. You don't have to hear a moo.
That's right. you know, the Hindus, they say om. It's like they got the cows, the moo thing. It's like moo is om spelled backwards.
So that's why they're sacred cows, because of the ohm. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, any parting words to the folks still listening?
Love one another. Blessed be.
Hey there, buddy. Looks like you made it to the end of this episode. Since you made it to the end of this episode, do both of us a favor and stop being greedy. Stop it right now and share this episode with your friends and your fellow podcast lovers, especially those who have book clubs and want to listen to the authors who write some amazing books.